Hello friends, if you've clicked in for this video, let me just start by saying we are kindred spirits because this is an art. To be able to tell somebody to go kick rocks as kindly as possible. Let me just start by saying that this is a necessary skill to have in life to be able to protect your boundaries, love yourself, and tell somebody to go someplace else. Whatever the circumstances are, remember kindness comes first because kindness is the highest form of intelligence. Now, being kind and being nice are two different things. To understand, there is a difference in being kind and being nice. If you want to go about this the nice way, chances are you're not going to have this conversation. You're not going to hold the boundary and you're not going to tell somebody to go F off. Kind, on the other hand, is holding your boundary, loving yourself first, and loving yourself enough to say, this isn't good enough for me. And by having this conversation, I'm making my boundaries and expectations very, very clear. And before we get into it, let me introduce myself. If you're new here, hello, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. My name is Kerri Wilson. I'm an intuitive consciousness coach, meditation practitioner, and teacher. I love what I do. So before we get into it, let me just say I'm going to show you a receipt, a template you can use. Take a screenshot of it if you'd like. This message I sent, I don't mean to boast, but I am very good at this, and I'm going to give you a receipt. You can take a screenshot, use it as a template, use it as you wish, because this message, this F-off that I gave somebody a little while ago was so perfect. You could hear violins playing in the background. So stay tuned to the end because I'm going to give you a receipt to hold on to. So let's get into it. First thing that I want you to do when you know this conversation is going to happen, you know you need to be very direct with somebody. I want you to slow down a bit. I want you to slow down. If you have time to plan before this conversation, that's even better. What I usually encourage people to do is to take a notepad and just write out a couple points that you know you want to make. So it kind of keeps you on task. There's no harm in it. It's actually an act of respect, saying that you came organized for this conversation because you wanted to make sure it was as effective as possible. 2, and this is most important, beware of the language that you use. And this is what I mean. Particularly in hard conversations, when we're about to tell somebody to go kick rocks, the words that you're choosing are going to be very, very critical, because what happens is, and I call them attacking words, and what I mean by that is we have to be careful not to attack. And it's the words we choose that will make the difference. So for example, if you're telling somebody, no, that doesn't work for me, no thank you, and then you add, that's ridiculous. Well, all they heard was ridiculous. So they are going to respond to that attacking word. They did not hear anything else you said. They just heard that one attacking word. So beware, the words that you're choosing are not an attack. What I would suggest is using I am statements. I am uncomfortable with this. I felt as though I was dismissed in this conversation. I feel like I'm being disrespected. It takes the attack out of it, but you're still expressing what you need to convey. And you're making it about you, not them. So it's more likely the other person is going to hear you. Now, I will caveat that there are some personalities that won't hear anything that you're saying, will not accept that they're wrong in any way, shape, or form, and will insist on playing the victim. The best advice that I give people is to have the conversation anyway, because you've had it. So they can't say you've never had this conversation before, whether they received it or not, whether they accepted the part they played. They've heard you have this conversation with them before. So have the conversation anyway. Next step is to be very specific. Be very specific with what you've experienced, how it made you feel, how the outcome may have affected you negatively, what the problem actually is, how it's actually playing out in your life. Now, this could be this, however this resonates for you, take it. Every conversation that you're going to have is going to be a little bit different with different people. It could be professional, it could be personal, whatever it is. But be very specific about what the exact problem is, because we get in this position. I see it all the time that people think, or they assume the other person knows what's happening, or they'll say something like, I don't know how they don't know that I'm upset. Well, the answer is you haven't told them. You know, as if we are the communicator, it is our responsibility to make sure the communicatee understands what we are trying to communicate. It is not the communicatee's responsibility to interpret what you're trying to say or to read your mind. It's just not going to happen. So you have to be very specific about what the problem is. If you want somebody to be accountable for their actions, you're going to have to tell them what the problem is. If you want to see a difference, if you want to see a change in behavior, if you want somebody to go away from you, you're going to have to tell them to go away from you. And they're not going to get it unless you say it. So you have to be very specific. Next, I want you to practice active listening. And what I mean by that is you're not quiet long enough just for you to respond to somebody. You are actually quiet so you can listen and hear everything this person is saying to you. And even what they're not saying to you. I said in the last video, pay attention to what they're not saying, their body language, their eye movements, where they're looking, if they have any tics. You're actively listening to everything they are telling you in the moment, not just their words. And then you're going to take a second to process what they're saying. And honestly, this is a sign of respect. Whatever the circumstances were, whatever they are, at least give somebody the courtesy that you would like to be shown to you. So listen to what they have to say. Now, it may not change the outcome. You still may not want this person in your life anymore, and that's totally fair. But at least you've heard what they've had to say. And that is a sign of respect, not only for them, but for you, because there's always going to be a lesson for us. Listen to what they're really saying with all your senses. Next, set expectations going forward. If it's a boundary, saying, hey, you can't call me after this time, that's the boundary. Or, hey, I need you out of my life. I need you out of my life forever. Don't call me again. If that's what it is, you set the expectation. And finally, if you can, and I'm not saying this can happen for everybody, end in a positive note. Even if it's wishing somebody well, you know, I wish you well, I hope you heal, I hope you get everything that you've ever dreamed of, please go away. For me, even if I'm ending a relationship or telling somebody to go F off, I still wish them nothing but the best. I'm just not built to hate anyone. It's just not in my system. I just don't roll like that. I just don't have the capability to do it. So even in circumstances, if somebody has betrayed my trust, or, you know, somebody's trying to come back in my life and I do not want them there, I still wish them well. I hope they succeed. I hope they have every happiness in the world. I sincerely want that. So whatever this conversation looks like for you, make sure you end in a positive note, because it makes you actually feel better, more sturdy, you know, like I did that, you know, and I'm proud of myself for actually having this conversation. Here's the truth. Many people have great difficulty having hard conversations, even though they're necessary, even though they are so unhappy because they have not had this conversation. So this may take practice. This may be pushing you out of your comfort zone. We've talked about that before, but if it's come to this point and you're watching this video, it has to happen. And the thing is, we build it up in our minds so much to create this monster out of something that probably will go very well. It probably takes all about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to have these kind of conversations. The trick is you get in, you say what you have to say, you get out, you wish them the best, and you keep it moving. you keep it moving. And I will say another thing that I want to caveat here is don't tiptoe. If you are hell-bent that you're ending a relationship or you're not letting somebody else back in your life, you say what you have to say, follow the tips, say what you have to say, wish them the best, and you keep it moving. If for some reason they're trying to appeal to your sensitivities or they're trying to manipulate you, stop. Do not entertain any more conversation because you know better. Sometimes we fall into this trap where we compromise ourselves, what we need to make others happy. It's called people pleasing. I am guilty of this myself, and there are varying degrees of this. Chances are, if you're not holding your boundaries, if you are not having these hard conversations, it's because you don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings, i.e., you are a people pleaser. Chances are you're going to be exhausted. You're not going to know where you start and somebody else begins. It is a slippery slope. So tell somebody to go kick rocks if you need to tell somebody to go kick rocks. So keep in mind in these conversations, the goal is not to belittle. It is not to shame somebody else, because how would you like it if they did it to you? The goal is to set healthy boundaries, set expectations, so you can move forward with grace and strength for your next steps. And the more you do this, the better at it you will get. Now, remember that receipt? Here it is. Isn't this lovely? And please note the response. Only thing that could be said was wow. And I never heard from this person again, thankfully. I hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and hit the like button below. Feel free to subscribe, and please share it with somebody else if you think that they need this kind of guidance and advice. I honestly think these are tools that everybody should have in their tool belt. You never know when you're going to need to tell somebody to go F off. Until next time, I love you all. Mwah.